If you love great stories, you've come to the right place. Subscribe to my channel to make sure you don't miss any new videos. Like and share this video with your friends if you enjoyed it, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The second week of the Gilded Reign began with a sound that King's Landing had not heard in 300 years. The rhythmic, leathery thrum of wings beating against the morning mist. But unlike the stories of Aegon the Conqueror, where the dragons were seen as majestic harbingers of a new era, Cersei's dragons were perceived as omens of doom. In the cavernous ruins of the dragon pit, which Cersei had ordered cleared of debris and fortified with massive iron gates, the air was thick with the smell of scorched meat and copper-tasting blood. Cersei stood on a high stone catwalk, looking down into the pit. She was no longer wearing the heavy gowns of a queen regent. She wore a suit of boiled black leather, reinforced with golden studs, armor designed for a rider. Below her, the three dragons, Tywin Joffrey and Miachella were growing at a rate that defied nature. Qyburn's theories suggested that the wildfire and Cersei's own proximity accelerated their growth, fueled by the blood of the lion. "They are hungry, Your Grace," Qyburn whispered, standing a respectful 3 paces behind her. "The sheep and cattle are no longer enough to sate their predatory instincts. They require a more complex form of stimulation." Cersei looked down at the golden beast, Tywin. He was now the size of a warhorse, his muscles rippling beneath scales that looked like burnished plate armor. "They are Lannisters, Qyburn. They don't just want to eat. They want to hunt. They want to dominate." She signaled to the guards below. A heavy iron door groaned open, and a group of prisoners was pushed into the pit. These were not common thieves. They were the remaining members of the Faith militant who had survived the Sept's explosion. Broken, soot-stained men who still clutched their 7-pointed stars. "You gave them a choice, didn't you?" Cersei asked, her voice echoing in the vast space. "I did, Your Grace," Qyburn replied. "I offered them a quick death by the headsman's axe or a chance to walk through the fire and prove their faith. They chose the latter." The prisoners huddled together in the center of the pit as the dragons began to circle. Joffrey, the most aggressive of the 3, hissed, a jet of orange flame licking out from his snout. "Tywin Dracarys *, Cersei said. Her voice was low, but the dragon heard her. It was as if a telepathic tether existed between them. Tywin did not strike immediately. He moved with a calculated, cold grace, the same grace his namesake had used to dismantle House Tarbeck and House Rain. He walked on his wing claws, circling the men, forcing them into a tight, panicked circle. Then, with a sudden, violent movement, he lunged. The slaughter was not quick. Cersei had instructed Qyburn to ensure the dragons learned to savor the hunt. She watched with an unblinking gaze as the golden dragon used its fire to create a ring around the men, while Joffrey and Miachella dove from the shadows of the rafters to pick them off one by one. "See how they coordinate," Cersei remarked, her eyes reflecting the orange glow of the fires below. "They don't just kill, they terrify. That is the lesson the world needs to learn. It is not enough to die. One must die knowing that House Lannister is the hand of fate." As the last of the prisoners fell, Tywin looked up at the catwalk. He let out a low, vibrating rumble, a sound of satisfaction. He flew up, his massive claws gripping the stone railing just inches from Cersei's face. The heat coming off his body was like standing before a furnace, but Cersei didn't flinch. She reached out and placed her hand on his snout, feeling the vibration of his breathing. "Good boy," she whispered. But there was a problem. In the shadows of the pit, James stood watching. He had seen enough of war to know the difference between a battle and a massacre. This was something else. This was a woman feeding her soul's darkness into creatures that could end the world. James stepped out into the light of the torches. "Is this what the crown requires now? Public executions by monster?" Cersei didn't turn around. She continued to stroke Tywin's scales. "The people of this city followed a man in a burlap sack because he promised them justice. I am showing them what justice actually looks like. It is fast, it is hot, and it leaves nothing behind but ash." "You're teaching them to hate us even more," Jaime argued, his voice echoing with a desperate plea. "Fear only works as long as you're holding the leash. What happens when they grow too big for the pit? What happens when you can't satisfy their hunger?" Cersei finally turned, her face a mask of cold resolve. "Then I will find more enemies to feed them. The world is full of vipers, Jaime. The Tyrells, the Martells, the Starks. They are all just meat for my children." She stepped closer to him, the golden dragon's head resting on the railing between them. "You were the one who told me that we are the only ones who matter. I am simply making sure that is the truth. If the world has to burn so that we can stand in the center of it, then let it burn." Jaime looked at the dragon, then at his sister. He saw the same hunger in both their eyes. He realized then that Cersei wasn't just training the dragons were training her. They were stripping away the last vestiges of her humanity, replacing her grief and her love with a singular, draconic instinct to consume everything that wasn't hers. The scene ends with Cersei and Jaime standing in the dragon pit, separated by a wall of heat and the golden shadow of a beast. Outside, the bells of the city began to toll, not for a wedding or a funeral, but as a warning. The mother of monsters had begun her lessons, and the first lesson was that in the city of King's Landing, there was no longer any god but the lion. As the camera pans back, we see the dragon pit from above. It looks like a giant, open wound in the city, and from its depths, a plume of thick, black smoke rises into the darkening sky, carrying with it the remains of those who dared to believe in a world without dragons. While the heat in the dragon pit was intentional, the atmosphere in the streets of King's Landing was a cold, suffocating dread. The city had survived sieges, riots, and the Mad King, but it had never lived under the constant shadow of 3 apex predators. Every time a shadow passed over the flea-bottom alleys, the small folk didn't look up with wonder. They dived into their hovels, clutching their children and praying to gods they no longer dared to name aloud. In the Red Keep's council chamber, the air was thick with the smell of old parchment and the metallic tang of Qyburn's strange concoctions. Cersei sat at the head of the table, her presence more commanding than ever. Opposite her sat Jaime, his face a mask of weary disapproval. Beside him was the new, small council, a collection of men who were more terrified of the queen than they were of the impending winter. "The gold cloaks report that the city is quiet," Qyburn began, his voice a dry rasp that seemed to grate against the silence. "But it is the quiet of a graveyard, Your Grace. Trade has slowed. The merchants from the free cities are hesitant to dock their ships when they see the Golden One circling the harbor." Cersei sipped her wine, her eyes never leaving the map on the table. "Let them be hesitant. When they realize that King's Landing is the only port in the 7 kingdoms that isn't being raided or frozen, they will return. And when they do, the taxes will be doubled. We have 3 more mouths to feed, after all." "It's not just the taxes, Cersei," Jaime interrupted, his voice tight. "The city is starving. We're losing the support of the people. You can't rule a city of corpses." "I have already told you, Jaime," Cersei said, her voice dropping to a dangerous low. "I don't need their love. Love is a lie told by poets and weak kings. I need their obedience. And as long as Tywin and his siblings are fed, I will have it." She turned her attention to the Lord of Coin, a man who looked like he hadn't slept since the sept exploded. "What of the Iron Bank? Have they responded to our revised terms?" The Lord of Coin cleared his throat nervously. "The envoy, Tycho Nestoris, is on his way, but word has reached them of the dragons. They are intrigued but cautious. They want to know how you intend to use them to secure the realm's debts." "I will show them," Cersei said, a cruel light dancing in her eyes. "I will show them that the Lannisters are the only investment that matters. If the Targaryen girl thinks she can use the Iron Bank to fund her invasion, she will find the vaults of Bravos closed to her. They are bankers. They bet on the winning side. And the side with the dragons and the Iron Throne is the only side that wins." To prove her point, Cersei decided to do something no one expected. She decided to walk through the city. Not in a litter, not guarded by 1,000 men, but on foot, with only Jaime and the dragon Miachella gliding just a few yards above her. As she stepped out of the Red Keep, the silence was absolute. The gold cloaks cleared a path, their spears held at a rigid angle. Cersei walked with her head held high, her black leather armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. Above her, Miacella's rose-gold scales caught the light, making the dragon look like a shimmering ghost against the blue sky. The people watched from their windows, their faces pale. They saw the woman who had burned their holy place, now accompanied by a creature of legend. "Look at them," Cersei whispered to Jaime as they passed through the cobbler's square. "They aren't looking for a savior anymore. They're looking for a way to survive. That is the only true form of peace." "This isn't peace, Cersei," Jaime hissed, his hand never leaving the hilt of his sword. "This is a hostage situation. You're holding the entire city at Dragon Point." Suddenly, a woman stepped out from the crowd. She was old, her clothes tattered, her eyes cloudy with cataracts. She fell to her knees in the middle of the street, blocking Cersei's path. "The Seven have abandoned us," the woman wailed, her voice cracking. "The Mother of Monsters has come to devour our souls. The green fire was just the beginning." The crowd gasped. The gold cloaks moved to strike the woman down, but Cersei raised a hand, stopping them. She stepped forward, standing directly over the kneeling woman. Above, Miacella sensed her mother's irritation. The dragon let out a low, vibrating hiss and began to descend, her wings creating a gust of wind that sent dust and debris swirling through the square. The dragon landed on the roof of a nearby tavern, her claws tearing into the thatch. She leaned over the edge, her snout inches away from the old woman. The woman froze. The smell of the dragon's breath, hot, sulfurous, and predatory, filled the air. "The Seven didn't abandon you, old woman," Cersei said, her voice loud enough for the entire square to hear. "The Seven were weak. They were ideas held by men who wanted to control you with fairy tales. I am not a fairy tale. Miacella is not a fairy tale." Cersei reached out and tilted the woman's chin up, forcing her to look at the dragon looming above her. "You say I've come to devour your souls?" Cersei asked with a cold smile. "I don't want your souls. I want your hands to build my empire. I want your voices to sing my praises. And if you refuse, then Miacella will show you what divine intervention really looks like." The woman began to shake, a low, whimpering sound escaping her throat. Cersei let go of her chin and stepped back. "Let her live," Cersei commanded the gold cloaks. "Let her tell the city what she saw. Let her tell them that the gods are dead, and the lioness is the only one who can save them from the dark." As Cersei continued her walk, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. No one else spoke. No one else dared to breathe. When she finally returned to the Red Keep, she felt a sense of triumph she hadn't felt since the birth of her children. Late that night, Cersei called Qyburn to the map room. Jaime was absent, likely drinking himself into a stupor in the White Sword Tower. "The Iron Bank is not the only threat, Qyburn," Cersei said, tracing the lines of the Reach on the map. "Olenna Tyrell has fled to Highgarden. She is rallying the Reach lords. She thinks her gold and her grain can protect her from me." "Highgarden is a formidable fortress, Your Grace," Qyburn noted, "and the Tyrell army is the largest in the south." "It doesn't matter how large an army is if it can't reach the battle," Cersei said. She looked at the 3 golden dragon pieces she had placed on the map. "The dragons are growing fast, but they are not yet large enough for a sustained siege. However, they are perfect for a targeted strike." "What are you suggesting?" "I am suggesting a demonstration of liquid gold," Cersei said. "We have the wildfire caches. We have the dragons. Why wait for the enemy to come to us? Why not take the fire to them?" Qyburn's eyes widened. "You mean to use the dragons to deliver wildfire?" "Think of it, Qyburn. A dragon's breath is hot, but wildfire is eternal. If we drop flasks of wildfire from the sky and have the dragons ignite them, there isn't a castle in Westeros that can withstand it, not even Highgarden, not even Winterfell." "It would be a massacre," Qyburn whispered, a hint of genuine fear in his voice. "It would be a masterpiece," Cersei corrected him. She picked up the dragon piece and slammed it down on the Rose Road. "I want the Reach to burn. I want the fields of grain to become fields of ash. If I can't feed my city with their grain, I will feed my dragons with their fear." She looked out the window at the 3 dragons perched on the walls of the Red Keep. They looked like statues of gold and blood, waiting for the command to unleash hell. "Go," Cersei told Qyburn. "Begin the preparations. We march, or rather, we fly at the turn of the moon. The world has seen the birth of the monsters. Now they will see the mother of monsters at war." Her eyes filled with a cold, flickering light that matches the emerald glow of the wildfire she is planning to unleash. The shadow of a dragon passes over the room, and for a brief moment, Cersei looks less like a woman and more like a creature of pure, unadulterated flame. The night before the Lannister host was set to march, and the Queen was set to fly, the Red Keep felt like a tomb waiting for its first occupant. The air was thick with the scent of pine pitch and the iron tang of sharpened lances. In the courtyard, thousands of men in crimson cloaks moved like silent ghosts, their faces illuminated by the flickering orange light of the torches. Cersei stood on the battlements, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the Blackwater Bay met the dark sky. Beside her, the dragon Tywin was restless. He paced the length of the wall, his claws gouging deep furrows into the ancient stone. Every few minutes, he would let out a low, vibrating hiss that sounded like steam escaping a pressurized valve. "He knows," Cersei whispered, her hand stroking the dragon's hot, scaled flank. "He can taste the blood in the air before a single sword has been drawn." "He's a beast, Cersei. He tastes meat, not politics." James' voice came from the shadows behind her. He walked forward, his armor clanking softly. He looked tired, older than his years, the lines on his face etched by a grief he wasn't allowed to speak. "Meat, blood, it's all the same in the end, isn't it?" Cersei turned to face him. "The Reach is in open rebellion. Olenna Tyrell is calling me a mad usurper to anyone who will listen. She thinks her walls are high and her larders are full. She thinks the rose can outlast the lion." "She's not the only one, Cersei," James said, stepping into the torchlight. "I've spoken to the scouts. Daenerys Targaryen has landed at Dragonstone. She has Dothraki, she has Unsullied, and she has 3 dragons that are twice the size of yours. You're starting a fire on 2 fronts." Cersei laughed, a sharp, brittle sound that had no joy in it. "Size isn't everything, Jaime. My father taught me that. A small blade in the right heart is worth more than 1,000 spears in the field. My dragons were born of wildfire. They are faster, meaner, and they have a mother who isn't afraid to use them." "And what about the wildfire?" James' voice dropped to a whisper, his eyes darting to the dragon. "Qyburn is loading glass flasks onto the saddles. I saw them. You're turning these creatures into flying torches. If one of those flasks breaks over our own men." "Then they die for their queen," Cersei snapped. "Every man in that courtyard knows the risk. They are Lannister soldiers. They exist to serve the Rock, and right now, the Rock needs the Reach to burn." She stepped closer to Jaime, her eyes reflecting the emerald light of the wildfire torches below. "You remember what Father said about the Rains of Castamere. He didn't just kill the Rains, he erased them. He made sure that for 300 years, no one would ever dare to whisper their name without trembling. I am doing the same for the Tyrells. When I am done, Highgarden will be a memory of ash, and the rest of the world will realize that the Silver Queen is nothing but a girl with a fancy name." Jaime looked at her, and for a moment he saw the sister he had loved since they were children. But then Tywin the dragon let out a sudden, piercing shriek, and the illusion shattered. In her eyes, Jaime saw only the reflection of the flames. "You're not doing this for the family, Cersei," Jaime said, his voice hollow. "You're doing this because you like the power. You like the way they look at you now with terror. You've traded your soul for 3 monsters." "My soul died with my children, Jaime," she screamed, the sound echoing off the stone walls. This is all I have left. These are my children now. They don't judge me. They don't betray me. They just obey." She turned back to the dragon, her voice dropping to a chillingly calm tone. "Go to your command, Jaime. Lead the ground forces to the Rose Road. Wait for my signal. When the sky turns green, you charge. Do not stop until you reach the gates of Highgarden. I want Olenna Tyrell to see me coming. I want her to know that her House of Flowers is about to meet a drought of fire." James stood there for a long time, watching her. He wanted to say something, to grab her, to tell her they could still run, that they could leave this cursed city and its iron chair behind. But the dragon Tywin turned its head and looked at him, its emerald eyes glowing with a predatory intelligence. It bared its teeth, a low growl rumbling in its throat. Jaime realized then that he wasn't just losing his sister, he was losing his place by her side. The dragons were her new council, her new family, her new everything. He gave a sharp, stiff nod and walked away, his footsteps heavy on the battlements. As the first light of dawn began to gray the horizon, the signal was given. The massive gates of the Red Keep creaked open, and the Lannister army began its march, a river of red and gold flowing out toward the Reach. High above, on the Queen's terrace, Cersei stood ready. She was clad in her full blackened gold dragon-riding armor. Qyburn stood beside her, holding a long, silver-tipped spear. "The flasks are secure, Your Grace," Qyburn said. "The dragons have been fed. They are ready for the hunt." Cersei didn't respond. She walked to Tywin, who was perched on the edge of the terrace, his wings half unfurled. She climbed the mounting block and swung her leg over the dragon's back, locking herself into the Valyrian steel harness she had designed. She felt the heat of the beast beneath her, the rhythmic thrum of its massive heart. She felt the power coursing through its veins, a power that was now hers to command. "Joffrey, Miachella," she called out. The other two dragons, who had been circling the Red Keep, dove down, hovering in the air beside their brother. Cersei leaned forward, pressing her face against the golden scales of Tywin's neck. "Today we show them," she whispered. "Today we remind them why the lion is the king of the forest." With a sudden, violent thrust of his legs, Tywin leapt from the terrace. Cersei felt the stomach-dropping rush of the fall, and then the snap of the wings. The wind whipped past her face, cold and sharp, as the dragon caught an updraft and soared into the sky. Below her, King's Landing looked like a toy city, small and insignificant. She saw the thousands of soldiers marching, the smoke rising from the chimneys and the vast expanse of the Blackwater. But she wasn't looking at the city. She was looking west, toward the lush green fields of the Reach. The three dragons formed a wedge in the sky, Tywin in the lead, Joffrey and Miachella on his flanks. As they passed over the city walls, the people looked up, their faces pale masks of fear. They saw the mother of monsters taking to the skis, and for the first time, they realized that the world they knew was truly gone. The final shot of the episode is a wide, cinematic view of the three golden dragons silhouetted against the rising sun. They look like three new stars born in the firmament, moving with a terrifying purpose toward their prey. The music swells, a dark, percussive version of the Lannister theme, the Rains of Castamere, but faster, more aggressive, with the sound of roaring flames woven into the melody. Cersei looks straight into the camera, her eyes bright with the thrill of the hunt. She raises her hand, and in her palm she holds a small glass flask of wildfire. "Burn," she whispers. Thanks for watching this episode. Share, and follow for more interesting stories and narrations. Thanks a lot.